Bom dia a todos, sejam muito bem-vindos a essa sessão da 42ª Semana Científica do Hospital de Clínicas de Porto Alegre. Eu sou a professora Luciana Stefani, sou atual diretora de ensino do Hospital de Clínicas, e é muito honrado para a gente ter organizado essa sessão sobre inovação na educação em saúde. A nossa ideia é aprendermos um pouco com quem está inovando, quem está na ponta do conhecimento e colocarmos em pauta uma discussão sobre novas estratégias de ensino. Como você sabe, nós estamos inaugurando também uma nova área física no anexo C, aqui do hospital, no 6º andar, e nós pretendemos proporcionar ambientes bem interessantes para o ensino e aprendizado de todas as áreas da saúde aí que o nosso hospital atende, né? Então, é com muita alegria que a gente trouxe dois convidados muito especiais, dois convidados internacionais, o professor Felipe Fregni, de Harvard, e a professora Alexa Miller, e por isso essa sessão será em inglês, certo? Então, nós vamos iniciar com as palestras e depois nós vamos ter algumas discussões, todas em inglês. Infelizmente, nós não temos tradução simultânea, mas a sessão fica gravada para posteriormente quem quiser acessar, ok? So we are very happy to have an international session today about innovation in health education and strategies of teaching. For this session, we will have two international guests, Professor Felipe Fregni from Harvard and Professor Alexa Miller from Arts Practica, both from United States. I will introduce Professor Fregni, and after his talk, we're going to have some minutes for debate. And after Professor Betania Borer, who is coordinating the session with me, we will introduce Professor Alexa Miller and the activity we will have about visual thinking. Also with us in the session, Professors Cristiane Leitão e Maria Helena Rigato from our medical school, Universidade Federal do Rio Grande do Sul. They will collaborate with questions by the end of the session. Well, let me introduce Professor Fregni. He has a great curriculum. Professor Fregni holds an MD and PhD from University of São Paulo, Brazil, and 3 master degrees from Harvard University, 2 master degrees in clinical research from Harvard Medical School and Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, and 1 master degree in education from Harvard Graduate School of Education. Nowadays, he's a professor of epidemiology at Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health and an associate professor of PM&R at Harvard Medical School. He leads a large clinical research lab, Spalding Neuromodulation Center, that is funded by major NIH grants that are currently investigating techniques to guide and measure neuroplasticity in brain injury. He has more than 440 peer-reviewed publications and has been leading the international training program Principles and Practice of Clinical Research since its foundation in 2007. Professor Fregni has also been awarded the United States Presidential Early Career Award for Scientists and Engineers. So, Philippe, it's a great pleasure to have you here. Many thanks for being with us today, and it's on you. You can start.
Very good. Thank you very much, Luciana, for this for the invitation, being here. It's always a pleasure to discuss what we think it's novel education and how we can contribute and participate in this conversation. So great to see as well Maria Helena, and also meet Alexa and Cristiane. So anyway, so then let me quickly show some slides for us to discuss and have this conversation. So and the question is, what is novel education and how can we change? What are the obstacles? And I'll show as well. So I selected 2 references to discuss that propose what are their sort of their vision for the future of education. And I agree with some of them, and we can discuss. And I think it's an interesting discussion here and debate. That's how I wanted to show here. So let me share my slides in 1 second here. Okay. Okay, and you should be, yes. Okay, I'll share my from the iPad so that I can make some notes. Okay, PDF. Okay, perfect. Can you see? Not yet. Okay, you can see. Wonderful. So then, to start this discussion, some questions to reflect. So, are we using the best educational methods? And I think that's a good reflection as well. So, before we think about innovation, before we think about changing, and then are we happy with what we're using? And if not, why? So I think this is important. It's important for us to reflect in terms of what is the current educational system and what we use in our medical schools and other schools. And one thing, again, the problem here is that you can see as a problem, but you also can see that as a potential sort of ground for innovation is that there is no, so usually in big medical schools, each faculty does a different thing, which is good on one hand, but also it leads as well to some educational methods that are not optimal. Okay? And the second question is, why so difficult to change educational methods? And that's an important thing. And I see as well, so I have it, Luciana, Maria Elena participated as well. So we have a group of educators that we have a program that for a few months we get together, we discuss everything we learn about, we know about the neuroscience of education. We apply to design new educational methods, but then the challenge is how to implement that. And this is not only difficult in education, this is also difficult in healthcare. And healthcare, there's much more support, much more systems. And education is even worse. So you do a study and you publish a study in education showing, look, we should do shorter lectures, but then nothing changes. And why nothing changes? It's difficult. It requires effort, it requires funds, time, and willingness to change, and also requires as well. So why should we change if our students are theoretically doing well in the exams? That we know the exams also do not measure learning. So, and that's one thing. So we will discuss a lot of new things here to do, and how we think the future of education will be. But then, how about, and the question is how to implement those changes. And again, the science of implementation, it's a difficult thing, and for healthcare and for education even more. Okay, and we use evidence-based educational methods, and I think the answer, as you know, is no. We still use very little, so we base our educational practices very little on data. Unfortunately, in most places, again, it seems that if you compare education to healthcare, so we are back in 50 years ago in healthcare, that we use what we think that works. So we go there, we are a teacher, we go there, we teach our class, we think students are happy, the students get good grades, and then we are happy. So, but do we know if that, and that's the problem. So if the students are happy and they get good grades, does not mean that's the best in terms of what the students will learn for the future, whether they'll be better professionals in their sort of in their career and so on. Because that's a big issue as well, which there's no easy solution for that. But the way we are measuring our medical students, our students not necessarily reflect in them being better physicians. So, which that's even open up for a more challenging questions. And then also are using cost-effective methods. That's also very interesting as well, and especially thinking on how much we spend in education. and can we spend less to give more and improve it? So can we become more cost effective? We spend less and educate more people with more quality. So that's also something that, in a way, so again, comparing to healthcare, more and more looking for cost effectiveness, which is still, it's interesting in US. So the NIH, which is the governmental agency that funds research in healthcare, they do fund, of course, cost-effective studies, but even it's a small part. So it's still, so if you compare here and also compare to education, so we should be looking for cost-effective models as well. So not only best education, but also methods, but also those who are more costly. But the thing is, it's not just decreasing costs to enhance more people, but decreasing costs, but with effective methods. Okay? And then the final two questions. So, is there an incentive to change our educational methods? And that's a very interesting question, and that's I know Luciana is probably dealing this on the day-to-day basis. So we wanted to improve, but what are the incentives from the institution, from the teachers, from the students? If the students, they know the system, they know how to navigate the system, why they don't want to change. The teachers, same thing as well. They're used to teach their PowerPoint slides. They may not be interested in changing and doing something completely different. It requires time, effort. So, and same thing as well, the institution. So, what are the sort of resources you need to do radical changes and also to open up for potential issues? Okay, and then finally, technology, which is a big thing as well. So, are we using technology correctly? And that's a big chapter as well. So I think, unfortunately, technology is, again, it is in a way, usually policymakers think this is a low-hanging fruit, meaning that's an easy thing that I can put a little bit of money on technology, and then I'll make the education better. Not sure if they think they will make education better, or they just know it will appear to be better. But the solution is not just buying computers for schools. It's interesting. So in our clinical research program that we teach, and we have it about 50 sites. We call it a classroom, global classrooms, and we connect live with them. And each classroom is a little bit different. And you see, I think there's 2 or 3 classrooms now. There's one in Colombia, I think. There used to be one in Brazil. That the classroom is full of computers. So, in the way, it's very sort of in a way, it has the opposite effect. It's counterproductive. And why is that? Because you have so each desk has a computer. So you don't see the students. So imagine you're talking to me and I'm like this. So that's what teachers they see. They just see the back of the screen instead of seeing the students, and the students are distracted, and also the students don't even have a place to write notes because they have a keyboard, everything else. So again, not sure who thought that putting a lot of computers in a classroom would make the education better. Maybe just the appearance of being more technology. But and I'm giving an extreme example, but we should think as well on how to use technology and be very careful, because technology usually is, oh yes, let's just buy more, let's just buy this software, let's just buy this computer, no, not at all. Again, sometimes the answer is no technology, so you may not need it. You may need very, very little, and something very, very cheap. So unfortunately, sometimes there's the inversion as well of priorities. But that's again an important thing to discuss. And then what I wanted to show here is, so I selected these two recent articles. One is here from Harvard, the School of Education, discussing. Oops, let me put it here. Where's my here? Discussing what is the future of education looks like from here, and the other one is discussed by some of these. It is a business publication, newspaper or magazine. So Forbes, the two biggest trends in for the future in education. Okay, so and they have interesting perspectives. That's why I thought it was interesting to show here. Okay, so let's start with the here the School of Education, our colleagues here. So a few things that they mentioned here, and I think it's interesting, and I highlighted. Alma helped me here with the slides. So thank you very much, by the way, Alma. So what are the important things they say here? So one is we learn a lot of things in the pandemic, and I'm not going to spend too much time on the pandemic, but I think we learned two things. We learn, yes, one, we can use. So I've been using it. It's interesting for my teaching. So I've been using online teaching combined. I use a hybrid method, which that's, I think it is the future, hybrid method. I never use online only. I always use hybrid method, meaning so my students, they go to a classroom, they meet in person, and then we connect the classrooms via video conference. But there's always the unit in person. Yes, there are students that can only connect on the web because they live away from the sites. We allow some of those come, but also we have the workshops that they come and they meet in person. So, but again, so the pandemic showed, yes, we can do online, which was interesting. So we were using Zoom before pandemic. We continue using Zoom. Nothing changes. Nothing changed in terms of, but maybe again, just being fair here on the changes. Yes, a lot of educators were not used to. They become more used to. A lot of students. So everyone now became more used to that, which is true. So before pandemic, so we use Zoom regularly, but yes, we had to train the students how to use the camera, how to use microphone, etc. Now it is something that it is automatic for majority of people. So, but we also learn that be careful not overusing that. So that's an important thing because I heard people say, yeah, so now everything can be done online, etc. And of course, this is far from the truth. Yes, everything can be done online in terms of technology, yes, but in terms of education, no, and that's a big no. And I hope that we also understand the importance of human interaction in education, and again, that is, I would say, what pandemic showed us. It's not just translating what you're doing in classroom to put it in an online. Not at all. Again, if you wanted to do it online, you have to truly think how you're going to connect the students online, which is not easy. And again, that's what we've developed almost 20 years in terms of our program, that we've been doing that again since not a little bit less than 20, 15 years. But we've been doing that for at least 15 years in our program, and we see the challenges. We learn, we do different things, and but again, always important is the connection. That's what we learn here. Another thing that I think is interesting as well, they mentioned here, is on connecting. So if connecting, having a global community, so learning from each other, learning what works and what doesn't work, which it is done, but can we do it more? Can we learn a bit more in terms of what we think that, again, we in a way, we learn a lot about Norway and Finland, these Nordic schools, and even Sweden as well. So they're innovative methods, but maybe we should learn more about other methods as well, other schools and so on. So, and learning what it works, and not necessarily that something that works in France work in Brazil and they work in US and so on. So, but at least again, should we connect more? I think it's an interesting one. And then again, the technology, and I think that's the way they put it here, should be used in service of the new educational methods, but not as a driver. You see, in service of, meaning it is a tool. First, you develop the model, and then you see how technology helps you, and be careful with that. If the technology is the main protagonist, I don't think it's going to work. Honestly, I don't. Because then you shift. There's no educational model. There's just using technology. And I remember, so one thing that this was in 2010 and 11. Again, we are teaching on, we have the hybrid course, the PPCR course. And then this 2010 and 11, I think 2010, Stanford came out with this MOOC, this massive open online course, and there was 100,000 students, and there were stories in New York Times, in Washington Post. Look, that's the future of education. It's interesting. Then you go back, and I remember talking to my colleagues and say, look, I don't think this MOOC, why? I don't think it's effective. I don't think it's going to be. And I see some colleagues saying, look, yes, this now with MOOCs, we can deliver this education from schools in US or other schools to the world with low cost, etc. And I said, no, because the MOOC, the idea was a one way. Education is never one way, never. So I think, again, education is learning from each other. That's how our brain is wired. Yeah, if we could change our brains, the way our brains are wired, then maybe, but we can't. So no, it's not going to work a one-way interaction. That's why MOOCs, and it was interesting because then Stanford came with that, and then Harvard, MIT started with the edX. Oh, now the future of education. And I remember colleagues telling me here at Harvard, oh, you are done, your course is done because everyone is doing the MOOC, your program is done. On the opposite, it keeps growing exponentially. So why? Because our program is designed with an educational model that we use technology, not the other way around. And that's why I think that they're correct here saying, look, technology should be used as a tool, not as the main driver. Okay. And again, that's the most important thing with here our colleagues from the education school. Human connections, interactions are the heart of education. It is. And the reason is, and I think the reason is very simple. That's how our brain is wired. We learn from each other. We have it, so more and more we're learning neuroscience. So not very recent, but a decade ago, we learned a little bit more decade ago, we learned about the mirror neurons. So the mirror neurons are neurons in the prefrontal cortex that they light up when we see someone doing something. Now, they saw that in monkeys when there was from colleagues from UCLA showed that they placed electrodes on the cortical area in monkeys, and they saw when the monkeys were observing another monkey doing something, these neurons light up. And we learn as well that those are the sort of that's how we learn. We learn by imitation. We learn by talking to each other. So that's and the peer interaction, it motivates us to learn more. It motivates us to have more passion. We learn about someone's passion and so on. So it is very rich when we can have it a sort of a number of people discussing and learning together. It's not easy to have this community learning, but when we can, that's when education is maximized. And yeah, so that's why, again, you should be careful. Again, technology, great, can be used, but it should be used, again, as in service of. So, and remember, human connections, interaction are the key. Okay. What else is important here? I think that's the last point that they made. So, changing students' demographics. So, access to higher education. and structural inequality will influence the future of education. And again, we should do much better. I think that's an interesting paradox of education. So the good schools, they want to select the good students. But at the end, the good students, the good schools are good because they have good students. You see, so it becomes a vicious cycle. And then we are saying, look, if you're not a good school, so you are destined. If you're not a good student, you are destined to go to a worse school. And also there is an interesting paradox, the idea of, and there's some interesting studies, the sort of the little fish in a large pond effect, meaning that as we try to maximize, and there's even a study here at Harvard showing the impact when you get a good student and you put in a class with very good students, and that student sees that I'm not doing the best, I'm not the best student anymore, it actually has a very detrimental effect on educational outcomes. So again, and why is the solution? Because at the end of the day, everyone wants to go to a good school. There's no easy solution, but at least we need to acknowledge that in a way, what we are doing, it is increasing the gap in this inequality, and also perhaps making even good students worse, and depriving as well the students of being in a more diverse environment and learning from each other. So again, and we keep doing that, and I think that's one thing that we need to think better. The solutions for that, are there easy solutions? No, but at least we should start acknowledging that. And then finally, and I know I have a few minutes here. This story here in Forbes. So they discuss the two biggest trends in education. Where's my pen here? Yeah, the two. Oops, not working. 1 second. Give me 1 second here. I think I may have it. Oh yes, I have no. That's fine. I'll wait a little bit, and I'll not make marks. So the two biggest trends, future trends in education. So again, so the one thing here, and it goes a little bit of what was discussed in this School of Education, thinking on what's important to teach. And I think this is one thing that, and I think that's the next one as well. So, but let me start here. In a way, we keep thinking in. So when we went in school, our main goal is to teach content instead of teaching them to becoming better learners. You see? So we teach students the content. We don't care if they're going to be better learners or not. That's a big problem. You see? So in the medical school, we're interested. We wanted to make sure we are obsessive that they learn everything about cardiology, physiology, pathology, etc. But we don't care if he finishes medical school being a good learner or not. We don't. I think it's very rare to see a medical school devoting time to teach students to become better learners. Okay, most of them will learn by themselves, but they could learn much more how to become better learners, and how to become innovators, how to advance their creativity, so to solve problems in a better way. And so also the importance of diversity. So again, and I think that's an interesting debate here. So again, we could be spending more time to develop a better individual. If we have it, that he or she would learn much faster and will be much better professional. Because we all know at the end of the day, it's not, what we learn from medical school, 90% we don't remember. And if we are going to, and if we are dealing with that, what we need to do it, we need to keep learning, we need to keep studying, we need to keep it as a lifelong learning process. But again, we keep being focused on the content. Again, not easy solution. We know that we need to have these standards. There's the medical professional society, how to make sure they know that. But perhaps we as we teach them become better learners, they can also learn as well. They can take a bit more responsibility for their learning. When they get there to these exams, they'll be able to do well as well in these exams. So again, that's not an easy debate, but that's definitely, and especially now, again, before, and if you think as well the evolution. So when I finished my medical school, in 1999. The internet came in 1996. So that was when it was coming. Then you have those dial-up internet with 28 kilobytes per second, and you had all the noise to connect. And at that point, where was the knowledge? The knowledge, it was in books, in the library. There was no online books at that point. So if you wanted to get the knowledge, you have to go to the library, physical library, get the book, and then reading the book. And the books were outdated. We know when the book's published is outdated for a few years. And then also, so in a way, you get knowledge about 10, 15 years before. Which is very common. Again, and this is not as far. This is 20 years ago, and then all the knowledge was in the teacher. So hopefully he or she was participating in medical conferences, was learning, etc. And but now it changed. So now it's not about the data, the information. Now it's about understanding. And I think that's can we shift learning and teaching to understanding instead of data, and that's a big challenge, but definitely I think we should. And then and I think that's the final one. So again, the current model is still this idea of a teacher-centered model, and even though we know the importance of student-centered models, but we should think as well on how to make it more personalized, how to teach students to be better learning, how to increase the connection between them by doing more collaborative learning activities. So again, our program, our PPCR is based on collaboration. Since day one of the program, the main method, and we published there, is a collaborative learning. So the students learning from each other. Okay, so that's how, and you see how much this can create in terms of the students being curious, and the students learning more, and that's how our brain learn. That's how our reward system. So again, our brain, in a way, it's all designed for that. When you talk to someone, you have this sort of a release of dopamine, and you feel well, and you are learning. You also have our sort of pleasure centers being activated, and so on. So that's how education. That's why education should be based on science, not what we think that works or not. And unfortunately, we are not using as much science in order to design our educational program. So, with that said, what are take-home messages? And I think my time is up. So, what are our that's our take-home messages here? The future of education, and that's my view, which I do agree with these two references. That's why I also chose them here. But again, technology education is not the driver, and we should not think that in order to improve our education or school, we should hire a 500,000 consulting from IBM or whatever who does that, and think that all the problems will be solved. No, and buying the most expensive softwares or computers or laptops or virtual systems. I'm not saying they're not useful, but if you wanted to invest, I would say invest on people, invest on changing the system as well to make learning natural. Again, we can do all of these, but our brain still learns as it used to learn 1,000 years ago. That's how our brain is wired. So this digital age, we should take advantage of that. And the advantage of that is that the information is there. And that's the thing. So technology show us that information is there. Information is there on at any time, anywhere. Even now in airplanes, you can access anything you wanted with the Wi-Fi. So now we need to change our education for understanding. So technology actually showed us that education should even go more for the interaction and collaboration. Okay, so again, human interaction is and we should be the main driver of effective education. We need to know how to connect these students. It's interesting. Sometimes the professors they get a little bit agitated when the students are collaborating, talking, questions. Of course, sometimes they're just talking for something that's not related. But we want them to be connected. We don't want a quiet classroom. We want them excited to go to the classroom. We want them to be, so, and that's an interesting thing. So in a way, the way that we see education is very wrong in a lot of sense. So we like the students should be well behaved. I'm not saying that they're not to be well behaved, but I'm saying so we want to just be quiet, go to the classroom, be quiet, only speak when we want people who challenge. That's what we want, people who are creative, students who are creative, and with students who talk, with students who collaborate, and we want to give them opportunities for that. And I think that's why the mindset of having the students quiet, just listening to the teacher, and unless we are pretending they are learning everything, you only learn when you do it. That's the basis of brain connectivity. You only learn when your brain is imagining or doing what is being told you to. So yes, it's important to lecture, but it's important to give them time to do things, to experience themselves. That's the basics of education. That's the basics of neuroscience. And that's what should be the basics as well of the effective education. So, and unfortunately, again, we are not, in the past 100 years, our educational method was not designed for that. And we should do much better on that. And finally, which is a difficult thing, especially for policymakers, for professional societies, but content should not be the main driver. So if our main driver is to make sure they know the risk factors of cardiovascular disease, then we are not doing a good job. So yes, they should learn that, but they should also learn how to become a good learner, how to develop their critical thinking skills, and so on. So it is difficult. It's not easy. That's why it hasn't been done. But anyone who takes this challenge and start proposing solutions to have better medical schools, better physicians, so then everyone will win. And we also have much more students being excellent and doing great contributions. With that said, again, thank you very much. And then I pass a little bit as well, but we can catch up now in the questions. And then also, if you have any questions that I cannot address for the participants in the audience, my mail is very easy to find. You just Google my name and you can find my email. I can even put it here on the. But anyway, so I'm ready as well for questions. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Felipe. You have amazing thoughts about education. So make us think about how can we improve, what are we really doing with our students. So I'd like to start with a difficult question, maybe a selfish question. How do you think that we can start applying these concepts that you believe in our daily activities, in the real world of teaching, in a university hospital like ours? If you could give us a first advice, how to start making meaningful change.
Sure. So I think yes, it's a very good question, Luciana. I think I would first try to map as much as you can. So what is the method of teachers in your school that they're using? So how much in class, what are the class activities they dedicated, how much in class they use for the whole class, for lecture slides, and 5 minutes at the end for a few questions. What are the activities the students have to do it, how the students are graded. So first I'll do a big mapping of that. And then I think that what my suggestion, and that's the important thing, so which is difficult, but I think the in-class time should be rethought. So in terms of the in-class time, we should use it in a much better way than we use now. So the in-class and also off-class as well, but the time the students are there is a precious time. That's not the time to be reviewing 20 slides, 30 slides. So the students should have a bit more sort of, which is difficult, and that comes as well. They need to have some incentive. So why they're going to read the material before, but in a way, so they need to come, and again, through incentives as well. So they need to come a bit more prepared to in class. And I know it's difficult, but the students can learn as well. You can change the habit, which that's one thing as well. And that's what another thing as well, Luciana. So they should have a continuous. One problem as well, so they learn since the beginning, since the first year of medical school, they start having the wrong habits. And they bring these wrong habits throughout the school. They know that, okay, so I go the first class, I learn a little bit, I don't attend to classes, or I attend to classes and I stay on my cell phone. Now it's much easier to be in class and to be attentive. So they go there, they don't care about the classes, and they study the day before the class and do the exams and pass. No, they need to learn. So that's the thing. So if you change the incentives, and what are the incentives? The incentives you use on the grades. So how they grade them. So they need to come prepared for classes through activities that they do it off class. And then in class, that's the moment that you use for them to collaborate. So that for me, I think would be a first step, which is not easy because the students will not be happy. They'll complain. The faculty also not be happy. They'll complain. And that's why, again, I think that's as an administrator, sort of a leader of the educational system. So you need to involve everyone on that system. So how they start changing their in-class and their grading as well, to get the students truly involved as well in the process. So and at the end of the day, Luciana, I think the only way to get that is through training. So training the teachers, and also developing as well strategies that the school think is a good practice to use the in-class time. So what is the good practice to use the in-class? So for instance, business school, the Harvard Business School here in Boston. So they have their system. Their system is there's no class, there's only discussion. So the students go there, they read the case, and I in my master's I did a few courses there, and it is the class. You change the professor, the class is the same. So you go there, you sit there, and then you start the discussion, and the professor is the moderator of the discussion, and then asking questions, and then it goes one by one. So they develop the model, and they use the model throughout the whole whole faculty and all the courses. Sometimes some courses they have a little bit of a content when is counting, and some things a bit more numbers. They do a little bit of a more class, but most of them again is only the teaching method. I think that'll be my suggestion. Again, develop, and I don't think as well, Luciana, and I'm making that too long. I see some schools they do, now everything is PBL, problem-based learning. It does. You can have a better outcome, but I don't think that's the solution. I think there should be some freedom as well for using, as long as the center, the main philosophy is with the student-centered methods. They can use different methods. So we are just putting together now a manual, which there are a few. We're not the first one, but we're putting a manual with different techniques to engage different neural systems in terms of enhancing attention. They're using student-centered methods. But I think that's is something that we should be thinking as well. So giving them the better tools, giving them a system, and trying to change since the beginning. So the students, they develop the habit. That's an important thing, because as soon as you develop a bad habit, you are done. I think that's what happens with a number of our students. But yeah, it's a challenging way. That's why I say, look, I don't have the solutions for that. The only thing I know is, yes, we are not doing the best we can. Yeah.
Thank you, Felipe. Chris? We have a few more minutes.
Thank you very much for your great talk. I was taking notes during your talk, so I have more or less 20 or 30 questions. So I think I have to do your program, like that Luciana told me more than 1 year ago. But I was thinking about something that I'm very worried about, and while I was taking notes, that we have to use the active learning. The student should be the center, the protagonist. Mm-hmm. We should teach them how to be better learners, and we should not focus on the content. Mm-hmm. So this is wonderful. But then I think about our curriculum in our university that has 124 years, and going to be 25 next year. And then the students, they have classes during the morning and during the afternoon. Mm-hmm. And then when they are going to prepare something, mm-hmm. Where should they learn? They study. And then I remember when I was a student, more than like 24 years ago, that they used to ask me, what do you do after between midnight and 6 in the morning? They asked you, you should study in the night. But then this is a joke, but it was serious that time. But what do you think? I think we have to change the curriculum. I think Harvard has already. You did a very huge modification of the curriculum, but what do you think about that?
So, Krishani, very good question. Yes, and I think that's, and believe me, that's still a lot of things that could be improved here as well. I think two things. Yes, you need to be feasible, and I agree with that. So many courses I've taken here when I was doing the master's program at the beginning of my journey here, and there's a very unrealistic amount of material to read. So, basically a whole book in 1 week, you had to read it. And of course, you can go quickly and you just read the first sentence of paragraphs to get a main understanding, but that's not the point. So, so that's the thing as well, Christian. So, but the way it's working now, so but that's the problem. We are, in the end of the day, Krishani, so if you think about productivity, and if you think about 8 hours per day, 8 times 5, it's 40 hours per week. That's a lot of hours. So we know that 40 hours, we are basically wasting most of these 40 hours per week. We know that by fact, okay? So can we use those 40 hours in a much better way? And I think that's the question, that because in the end of the day, we're being bureaucratic with these 40 hours. We're going there, and at least we feel good. We show them 40 slides about physiology of whatever, kidney diseases. We show the slides and we feel good. We did our part. If they don't learn, it's their fault. And then they know they'll have to memorize the day before exam, etc. They'll memorize and they'll be able to answer correctly, and we feel good because they take 100% on the exam or they got an A grade. But they're not learning. So, and I think that, and that's my point. So can we maximize how they use this time? And that's the thing, because the way we are doing, we're just checking the box. So, and I agree with you. So it's not realistic, Cristiane, so that we expect the students to do the 40 hours and plus 20 more hours at home. So, and I also think it's part of learning. Now, they should have a habit of exercise. They should eat well. They should sleep well. That's not the point for them. That's even in my book, I have a chapter for that in terms of, it's the last book, The Paradox of Learning, because we think that we learn more if we are just not spending time to eat or not spending time to exercise or sleeping only 3-4 hours. No, it's not gonna, your learning will be meaningless. So you need to sleep, you need to consolidation, all of that. But that's why, Cristiane, if we teach them how to learn, if you teach them, look, your attention system, the way we learn is that we study a little bit per day and then you retrieve the information, you help to consolidate. We need to design as well. So maybe we don't want to use these 40 hours to classes. Maybe we do it, they do it same thing as business school. So you have in the afternoon for cardiology. So the first hour is where you read the articles themselves and they discuss in small groups. One will explain to the other one, you see. I'm okay with the idea of them to spending the 40 hours only studying and having class the 40 hours. That could be a good model, but don't tell them that, oh, I'll give you the free morning and then you're going to do it at home and then you're going to study at home. No, they're not going to study. But you design the activities that they'll come, even if they have to sit in a group, everyone will read in the book and then they'll discuss themselves and then you go there. So if those 40 hours per week, they are used effectively, we'll do a much better job. And believe me, these 40 hours, most of these 40 hours, if you get the real productivity in these 40 hours, will be very, very low. But I agree with you. So yes, we shouldn't push. When I said that in class, I meant in class lecture, reducing in class lecture and giving more time for them to learn individually, in group, in the school. Same thing as you go when you go do your job, and they need to be there. So don't give them free mornings, free afternoons to study. Do not. Again, said the same thing as well. So we can do things from home, and I'm giving this lecture here from home, but you need to be very disciplined to be able to work well from home by yourself. So, and this should be only a minor part of your time. So you need to be there in person. So that's how I would redesign things. Reduce the number of classes, create activities in school, again, from 8 to 6 p.m. in school, not at home, in school, that they can interact. They go there, and you count attendance. If they don't show up, you give them you don't give them the positive scores. You have a monitor there, so you can, and one student pull each other, and they have to do it, and they'll do it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Felipe. I think you gave us many tools we need to apply. You need to start thinking about it. Our time is finished. Unfortunately, we have to pass for Alexa. Many, many thanks, Felipe. If you want to stay in this room, we're going to discuss after with Alexa with the visual thinking. Beautiful. Thank you so much again. Thank you.
I'll be here seeing the lecture of Alexa. And thanks so much, Luciana, Maria Elena, Cristiane, Betania. So I hope to see you soon in Porto Alegre. And look for
yes, sure.
Presentation of Alexa. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank me for your great lecture, Felipe. It was great. So I have pleasure and a big honor to present Alexa Miller, that I admire so much for so long. Alexa is a visual artist and facilitator by training, is a teacher and a researcher in health humanities, and a leading voice for observation and inquiry practice in health medicine. An original co-creator of Harvard Medical School Training in the Eye, Improving the Arts of Physical Diagnosis, a course that produces researched outcomes on impact of arts experience on medical student learning, and is she's driven by a strong personal interest in misdiagnosis and clinical leading. She's a founder and consultant in arts and clinical leading at Arts Predica, and she's an expert in health humanities, diagnosis, uncertainty, and visual thinking strategy, which is an inclusive and research-based facilitation method for experiential learning in art. I don't have words to say how much I love his work, and how pleased I am for having you, Alexa, and to present you and your work for our community. So it's all on you, and we have a good time hearing your.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boer, and thank you to all the organizers, and thank you, Felipe, for your incredible research, which I'm so happy to know about. And thank you to everybody here on this call for your service to human life as caregivers and as teachers. I'm very driven to do the work that I do out of that very intersection between impacting patient care through teaching. I think it's a very unique and special place, and one where the human interaction that Dr. Felipe talked about is so critical. So I just wanted to start with a moment of gratitude, and very much for your willingness as well to conduct this session in English. I'm very humbled that you're able to do that. So thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Make sure I have the right presentation here. Can you all see that okay? Wonderful.
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the visual thinking strategies approach, which is a facilitation methodology for engaging learners in interactive discussions of works of art. And it's a methodology that has been very foundational to my teaching for 20 years. And I can say that in 20 years of using this methodology in arts discussions with many different kinds of learners, I have never had it not reliably yield incredible discoveries in the most authentic ways. And I'm excited to, what I'm going to share today is about the visual thinking strategies generally. I'm going to share 2 stories of how I have used it in my teaching about diagnosis principles. And then I'm going to end with a general discussion about art, which is the most critical ingredient in visual thinking strategies, or VTS, and its potential for human development. So to start, understanding that there might be people here who have never heard of VTS ever at all. There might be people who are familiar with it a little bit or a lot. There might be people who teach with it or have experienced it. All of that is fine and welcome and wonderful. And I just wanted to start with asking people to share in the chat something you know about it, something you would like to know about it, what compels you. And I'm going to ask Dr. Borer and Dr. Vicki Feldstein, who is with me today, who's a masterful radiologist and ultrasound artist, frankly, who will be the keynote next month at the Society for Radiology and Ultrasound, and has been an incredible collaborator over the years. And she and I are doing some collaborations. And she is here also with me today to help moderate the chat and chime in as needed. So if Dr. Borer and Feldstein could just, I'm not going to pay too much attention to the chat right now, but I hope that as I go, you will interrupt me if any of the questions are particularly relevant or necessary. And I know the previous session went over a little bit, and I'm a little bit confused about the time. So I'm going to actually count on you to just tell me
okay,
when to stop for a question or when to rush ahead. And
don't
then
worry about the time. We will keep online.
Well, perfect. Just tell me what to do,
okay.
And we'll adapt.
Okay.
And then following this discussion, we will have the opportunity to actually do a VTS discussion with a work of art if people would like to stay to do that. So that's how it's going to go. So just briefly, as Betania mentioned, I teach a class at Brandeis University and at other places on clinical uncertainty and the challenge of it. And art and VTS is a very essential part of that class. That class stems from research that I did as a fellow through the Society to Improve Diagnosis in Medicine, where I studied adaptive approaches to uncertainty in the clinic. This has come out of a very strong personal interest in misdiagnosis through my family's experience as a patient experience, and also through my work as an artist, and a sort of early revelation in my career as an artist, becoming interested in the clinical learning process and noticing that there's opportunity for clinicians to learn from artists how to look and observe, especially complex, dynamic human life. Prior to that, I was a teaching artist for a course at Harvard Medical School, Training the Eye, Improving the Art of Physical Diagnosis, which was centered around the practice of observation in medicine. And we used visual thinking strategies, arts discussion, as well as drawing and interactions with patients in teaching. And our program, we researched it with a control group of students at Harvard over 2 years. And we found that students who took the course made 38% more observations on clinical pictures. And they also backed up their interpretations with evidence significantly more. And I'm happy to talk more about that research if people are interested. A critical part of that program and all of the programs that I've done myself as a teacher and also worked with as a consultant and faculty trainer at other places use as the basis of their work the visual thinking strategies methodology for teaching. So visual thinking strategies, or VTS, was co-authored by Abigail Howson, who was a cognitive psychologist who studied what people think about when they encounter art, or what's called aesthetic development. And she found that there's, in fact, a big trajectory of various stages that come along with interaction with art over long periods of time that actually correlate with milestones of critical thinking. And she partnered with Philip Yenawine, who for many years was the director of education at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City, who was a passionate conversationalist about talking with people about what matters to them in arts experiences. So the two of them teamed up to develop this methodology, which was really designed to help beginner viewers, not experts, but beginners, who are the majority of the population, simply access and enjoy art. And what they found is it actually boosts critical thinking skills, observation skills, is profoundly beneficial to students who are learning multiple languages, and has a number of other benefits as well. In recent years, in the last 20 years, in part thanks to the Harvard program and many other programs in the health professions, visual thinking strategies has gained traction in the health professions as a methodology to teach observation skills and some patient care basics. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. Recently, just this year, there was an entire chapter on it in this book, The Power of Teamwork by Dr. Brian Goldman. And so that's just sort of my intro to VTS, and we'll dive in a bit. So I wanted to start actually by sharing some stories from the trenches of teaching. And both of these stories take place in art museum contexts. Some of you might be familiar with this image. I love it so much. This took place at the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco, where people were like, oh my goodness, look at this amazing sculpture. And it turned out it was actually a prank that a teenager put some eyeglasses on the floor and pretended it was art. And I love this so much because it shows how willing we are to bring new lenses and new ways of looking at things, and a level of devotional, respectful attention to what we see when we frame it as art. And especially when we're in arts environments, which are very different from the clinic and the classroom and have very different hierarchies and expectations, and therefore create conditions for people to interact very differently with, whatever is the object of attention, as well as with one another when they are liberated from the hierarchy of expertise that so drives the knowledge economy and is known to drastically inhibit communication. So just a kind of quick nutshell about the power of arts environments as learning environments. But diagnosis, which is very much my passion and something I've studied and taught about for many years, and collaborated with diagnosticians in different specialties in medicine. There are many things about diagnosis that are paradoxical and sort of hard to teach and learn. Two of them being that, like what a diagnosis even is. A diagnosis is sort of like the answer to the question of what is troubling somebody, causing unwellness. And diagnosis is also the process by which you get to that answer. And it's a process that takes a lot of information gathering, a lot of perspectives, and a lot of information synthesis. And when we think about diagnosis as an answer, like an on-off switch or a bubble on a multiple choice test, we can shortcut that process and undermine the opportunity for diagnosis to occur. So, and schooling, especially for students who have done very, very well academically, often conditions them to think that it's a quick right answer, and that can cause them a lot of difficulty in that transition from classroom to clinic, which is known to be particularly tough. So the fact that it's a process, and also diagnosis lives out in the world. We used to think of diagnosis happening in the head of the clinician, like we see on House on TV, or, inside the mind of the expert. And it's not to say that expertise is not relevant, because expertise is essential. But we now know that diagnosis, we know this from different theories in cognition, including distributed mind and situativity theory. The diagnosis actually happens not inside the head, but out in the world, in conversations, in correspondences between people, between the patient family member, and the clinician, or within the clinical team. And it's a much more complex process. So once again, helping new students, especially students who've been academically speedy and rewarded for their speed and for their brilliance, to understand these things can be a challenge. And we need authentic simulations that are also de-risked where they can take interpersonal risks and experience uncertainty, where nobody is dying, where their grade is not on the line, where a life is not on the line, where their reputation or their expertise is not on the line, and experiment in uncertainty to be able to learn these skills, which typically have not been part of their schooling to date. So I'm going to tell two stories about how I've addressed some of these issues in teaching with art. So this hangs in the Art Gallery of Ontario in Toronto, and it's a scene from Shakespeare from The Winter's Tale. And it's a big, huge, it's like the size of a garage door. And there's so much information in this painting. You see evidence of like the strength of Mother Nature and the humility of mankind. You see hope of like the possibility of the storm passing, but you also see this shipwreck. And there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of drama in this picture. You see the lines and the light. And it's probably almost impossible to see this in the reproduction. And it's actually very difficult to see it in real life because it's so dark. But right up here in the foreground of the painting, there's actually a bear. There's a small bear. And I was with a group of clinicians in Toronto looking at this in person, and it took us about 20 minutes for that bear to reveal itself. And there's some incredible lessons here from that, because once that bear does reveal itself, it changes the entire narrative. And it also changes, it's almost in the viewer's space. And so it changes the experience of, what is happening with this protagonist as well as the viewer as well. And it becomes both more dangerous and a little bit comical as well. So a couple points here. First, observation is really goal-oriented. So by that, seasoned clinicians are trained in pattern recognition. And that's a very good thing. Our pattern recognition is our intuition. It's a clinician's greatest gift, especially when they're very seasoned and they have interacted with many different expressions of a disease over many, many years. But they are trained to look for those patterns. And so look for signs of this disease, look for deficiencies in this, look for milestones of this. And that's a good thing. And that works most of the time. But when we only do goal-oriented looking and we don't look with the perspectives of others or with a freshness in our view, we're not looking for anything, but in fact, we're letting things hit us, letting that bear jump out of the weeds, as it may be. If we don't do that, we can end up in a tunnel vision and fall prey to different kinds of bias. And that's why, I don't know as much about Brazilian healthcare as I do about US healthcare, but US healthcare pattern recognition is known to work most of the time, maybe 85% of the time. And errors are much more prone to happen in moments of false pattern recognition, simply because clinicians are so pushed to look for in a goal-oriented way. The second point is that it actually takes time. It takes time to take in complex dynamic data and to process it. And this is a huge challenge as clinical times are shrinking for productivity and as technology comes into the clinical space. And Dr. Frigny addressed this so well earlier. Clinicians need to know how to make effective use of their time and their attention, and to work with technology to maximize their attention rather than distract from it. So this is just a study that was shown actually, like taking small pauses at the right time had a positive result in an ambulatory setting. And there's actually quite a bit more literature on pauses and the expertise of taking pauses at the right time. But I just wanted to kind of speak to that principle that we can very much learn to, it can be hard for people to trust in that pause when we're so rushed. And it's in arts experiences where you can really see very quickly and firsthand gain the experience to trust in the reliability of that pause as a strategy. This is another work of art. It hangs at the Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. It's a work of art I've used many times in my teaching, and I absolutely love it. There's so much paradox here, just like human life. It's unclear, what are the gender of these figures? It's actually not clear. What are they engaged in a harmonious, peaceful act of sleep? Are they wrestling? Are they in conflict? Are they battling? Is it about togetherness, or is it about wrenching apart? Is it loving, or is it actually violent? There's a lot of different things we can see all at the same time, and it only gets more complex the more we look. So this picture is called, there's a lot of complexity here. This picture is called The Wrestlers by Henri Gaudibert-Bredska. But if I told you right away it's called The Wrestlers, our learners would miss the opportunity to see all of this complexity, because the way in which information is framed and delivered at a handoff radically influences what we rule out as important or not important. And just because Henri Gaudibert-Bredska named this The Wrestlers, it does not mean that it's literally wrestlers. What it means is it's about wrestling, about that dynamic of play and conflict and struggle that exists in life and in relationships. And so this piece really speaks to the power of how much more we can see when we take the time to look at things openly and fresh before we bring in preconceived knowledge that might direct our gaze. And that's, the way in which patients are framed and the words that are chosen to describe patients are known to stick in the patient record and radically influence the care that patient received. The way we see somebody truly influences how we treat them. So you think about words like alcoholic or difficult patient or geriatric pregnancy or unreliable historian, the way those things get planted in a record, they have very long-term impact. And so that's another strategy to bring awareness to the words that we choose, using, and it actually connects directly to the research findings in our Harvard study, that using factual descriptions rather than inferences is a more advanced clinical skill and really essential to excellent patient care. Very much connected with bias. These are some of the top biases known to happen in clinical practice. So I'm going to end just by talking about art as a fertile space for clinical learning. Dr. Fregni talked about not, teaching what to think and the danger of teaching what to think. So art and visual thinking strategies is very much an arena or a space to teach how to think and to offer strategies for how to make sense of the world, and also give students the opportunity to come up with their own strategies in real time. And art is a really powerful place to do that, because works of art, they enlist our senses. Discussions of this works of art talks about the music and the smell and the colors, and we can literally hear it as we take in the story. They tell a story. They bring us to another time, another place, at the same time, deeply human and common stories that are universal. Works of art are made from a place of unique humanity and reflect the full spectrum of our human complexity. They bring us back to our most ancient roots and dilemmas and situations. And, one small detail can unlock worlds, and it often takes bringing in other perspectives to do that. There are many definitions out there about what a work of art is. I love this one by Kara Walker, and I think it's particularly relevant that it can hold us in this contested space, a space to take interpersonal risk without any real world injury or loss. So again, in these arts discussions, no patient is dying. Nobody is supposed to be the expert. So it's safer to take those risks. And, there's actually very little at stake, but the uncertainty is just as authentic. And so that's a kind of, if VTS is bread, art is the flour, right? Art is the foundational ingredient in this process. It's based on theories of human learning, primarily these three: Rudolf Arnheim, who wrote the book Visual Thinking, who talks about what we see and what we think are so closely linked, they are almost inseparable. So when we can unpack that and start to play around with what we see and collide with what others see and change our mind about what we see, we can actually start to unravel some of our thinking and unlearn and relearn. The second from Vygotsky, who studied social learning, and I'm sure you all know the zone of proximal development, but that ideas are born in language. So VTS gives people a space to sort of think aloud their ideas and change their mind. And Hausen, who writes about these stages of development that happen in aesthetic experiences. So VTS is this practice, which we will do following this presentation, just a way of looking at art. It's actually a sequenced curriculum and a completely different approach to teaching itself, in which the teacher is not the high priest of knowledge, but rather a facilitator of discussion who learns how to skillfully hold a group and allow for an open-ended yet structured and always evidence-based discussion. It's also a nonprofit. You can see more about their work with children in K-12 schools on vtshome.org. And it's a community of global practitioners all around the world. So here, am I at 5 minutes? Okay, perfect. Here is sort of a quick pedagogical overview of the mechanics of VTS and how it works. And when people undertake training in VTS, you spend a lot of time on this. But primarily, the teacher simply asks questions. What's going on in this picture? What do you see that makes you say that when somebody says something that's open to contention? And what more can we find? That third question is so powerful. If you think about curiosity, curiosity is the assumption that there is always more to see. So when the teacher models that assumption in that question, what more can we find? It radically changes the expectation of the group and allows learners to keep going. These are all the mechanics of sort of staying skillfully neutral as a facilitator and creating an environment where people want to share and participate and sort of feel safe contributing at various levels of, it's red, it's a story, I think it's this, different kinds of risks in many ways in. So in the health humanities space, there's actually been quite a bit of research. And I'm going to end by just sharing this article, which just came out a couple of months ago, which is a perspective piece in academic medicine. It's about the arts generally, but the piece uses VTS as an exemplar of arts education in medical education. And the authors identify 4 domains of clinical excellence that VTS addresses. Communication and interpersonal skills, professionalism, diagnostic acumen. I personally think that one should be first, and passion for people in clinical medicine. I couldn't agree more with these authors. And I think these 4 things are sort of the sacred aspects of care that are at risk of being lost when we get too caught up in industry and technology. And I also think that the authors could push further that there is a role for VTS in fundamental paradigm shift happening in education today as we shift from a top-down, hierarchical way of organizing knowledge and communicating to a knowledge of a paradigm of co-creation. So I would describe the paradigm in these terms: a shift from a legacy paradigm where the doctor is the priest of knowledge to one where the doctor is a skilled and seasoned guide and really a co-creator of knowledge with a team and the patient, encountering specimens of life that maybe aren't in the textbooks, but are still legitimate and need care nonetheless. And they know what to do in those moments rather than default to preconceived knowledge that might be faulty. From a technology that can inhibit relationship to a technology that can support relationship, from a defensive culture to a culture of learning and growth, from the technical to the relational, individualism to interdependence, and most importantly, I think, having competence in uncertainty, which is critical for our clinicians and our teachers. And I believe with all my heart that the clinicians who are most connected to the needs of their learners and to patients and their communities have a very important role in our world and our future. So thank you so much. I'm happy to answer questions, and I hope some of you will stick around to look at some art together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexa, for your fantastic words and fantastic knowledge that you are sharing with all of us. First of all, I want to invite everyone that are watching us to keep online, because Alexa Miller is presenting us to keep online and do practice activity with VTS. Like an example, like a drop of VTS for all of us. So I learned the most beautiful definition of arts with you in saloons, and I wanted to say sorry for Vicky that I didn't present Vicky in the beginning of the class. Sorry, Vicky. So I learned the best definition that I heard about arts. It's I learned from you. That is something that you can that makes you feel and think at the same time. And when I hear you talk, I really feel and think that healthcare and teaching for students, it has the same definition for me. So I really want to say thank you, and I wanna since I have the felicity to talk with you a lot of times, I want to share the opportunity for all the people that are here in this conversation to make questions for you.
Thank you. And I think your comment, what you just said about it makes me want to just spell out, this might be implied, but that for so many of you, medicine is your art, and that there's a true art to patient care.
Yes.
That is so important in our world. And so, we're talking about making art and looking at art, but the real art is the teaching and the learning and the care.
Yes. And I want to present to you some very special person for me, Helena Barreto Santos. And she was the one that presented your work to me.
Oh,
so I say thank you,
much.
Helena. And I don't know if Helena has some question to do.
Hello, Alexa. It's very nice to.
Thank you so much.
Very nice to have you here with us, even at distance. Now I used to be a professor of medicine like 10 years ago, and I ended up to meet your work about while I was looking for material for classes of diagnosis reasoning. And but now I'm working with quality improvement here in Hospital de Clínicas de Porto Alegre, and I could see an opportunity for training the teams, the care teams, like not undergraduate students, but residents, medical, and also other health professionals. That we have here many programs for residents, And I would like if you could please tell us about this opportunity for improving teamwork with VTS. If you know something, you just show us the book, but a little different from this discussion of education for medicine, but for all this.
Absolutely. It's a wonderful question. Thank you. I'm actually going to look for a different slide from a different presentation to help answer that. So give me a moment. Actually, I'm not going to bother doing that. So when I think about VTS, there are a number of levels of learning that can take place, and it can be applied towards multiple ends. So what I've been describing is like, when I'm the teacher or another person is the teacher, and we're facilitating a discussion that asks learners to look and reason and develop those skills. There's another level of learning that can take place where we train people to actually understand how to be the facilitator and to hold the group. And it's in that level of learning where there's profound implications for teams, especially when everybody on that team takes a turn being the facilitator. Because what starts to happen at that level, which is really the leadership level, but it emphasizes that everyone in the team is a leader, that they become conscious of the cultural norms that drive the team. So, and they're also, it's a completely different skill set. Being in a VTS discussion as a student is one skill set, it's a very important skill set. But holding the group as the facilitator is a different skill set. It's one that's much more based in listening and mirroring back what people say, keeping the environment neutral and safe for all different kinds of perspectives, keeping a spirit of curiosity and innovation as the driver of the discussion, while at the same time always connecting ideas back, linking them back to facts, to what we see, to how they link to other people and the goal. All of those moves are moves of skillful management and skillful teams. And when the same group of people, there's a third level of learning, which is the development of the group itself. So the group itself starts to change over time with this process because those norms become routinized. And again, especially if everybody is learning the method and everybody has the chance to give one another feedback based on a framework, suddenly they have become a professional learning community and they're cheering for each other. They're helping each other learn this new thing. They have a very clear, structured way to know what they're looking for, to give each other constructive feedback. They get to appreciate each other's different styles and sort of the tone and the energy that people bring. And then dropping back down to that first level of learning, everybody does still get to be a student of it. And through that process, you learn so much about yourself and the other people with you in the group as they share their line of thought. Now, sharing a line of thought, sharing a perspective, that's a foundational capacity of patient safety culture, right? So not only do they learn how to promote that happening, and they normalize it within the group, in the process of doing it and hearing others do it, they learn about each other they see new sides of each other. Because when we talk about what we see in art, we're bringing our own background, our unique upbringing, our schooling, experiences we've had in sports and in life. And those things shape, I'm not sharing about myself saying, hi, I'm Alexa and I played ice hockey, but I'm sharing, we're talking in an on-topic way, but you're learning about me, you're learning about yourself. So it it develops team cohesion and trust that way. And sometimes, you see these shifts where somebody has brought in a really idiosyncratic perspective, and it's like, what is that person talking about? That's crazy. And then they share their line of thought, and people are like, I totally see what you mean. And it advances the group. So it's kind of happening on a range of levels in a range of ways. But that's kind of some of the basics of how. And does that answer your question?
Yes, very much. Great. I like this. It's an opportunity for us to think about also VTS at hospital for training people and getting better teams and better care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think it's a really exciting place to work as well, is the learning culture and the team level. And I think the two, they're very different outcomes, but they both need each other. And I think they can happen in concert in different ways.
It's fantastic, but you see the people having completely different observations about some work, about some piece, but when they start talking and they start to agree, oh, I can see this also. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. I don't know if we have any other question here.
Just a quick comment to Alexa, that I enjoy very much your presentation. Thank you very much. And I'll just link this to the question from Cristiane. So that's exactly, Cristiane, so what you're discussing. So how to, so we have the how to get the students to learn more within the time allotted. I think that's exactly, so when they bring these inclusive discussions, and that's the thing, so teach them to, I don't know if the word is teaching, but yeah, in a way, so, but show them, and yeah, they need to learn how to participate and having better discussions. So that's not about, and that's the whole thing, because we are so focused on the content, we forget that the process is as important. And I think that Alexa did a wonderful job and wonderful work. So thank you. I learned a lot.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And likewise, I'm so happy to learn about the research that you're sharing. It's so important.
Thank you.
Luciana, I believe that we match two great works together.
May I have a question to Alex? I like it a lot. I saw some presentations about including art in a medical school, in like clinical examination. I teach clinical skills. You call semiology, but I saw a talk about that. And also in a professor in University of Toronto, he gave a talk about in another way, not only observing the art, but the students should perform something that could be music, but it had to be some relation with the some patients that they observe. I don't know if you have some experience on that, when the students, they create art. Mm-hmm. And you can comment about that.
Yes, so there are so many ways to bring in art, and I'm an artist by training, so of course I think it's all really important, and it's important to emphasize, like, talking about VTS is sort of just one side of what's possible, because we're talking about viewing art. Although in the Harvard class and in a lot of other classes, we also do quite a bit of drawing and making art, and then there's a whole world with music and, performance and poetry. And I think it's all really important. And I'm not an expert in the literature on making art and medical education, but there is a literature there. What I would say is, at the end of the day, and improvisation and theater too, there's a huge world there. At the end of the day, doctors train and train and train and train to be ready to leave as little to chance as possible. But the whole world of clinical medicine is chance, right? It's unique individuals and complexity and chaos theory. And who knows, there's a lot of probability, that drives outcomes, but there's also a lot of surprise because people are different. And the way in which diseases express is different in different people and different communities. And at the end of the day, what they're doing is not, they bring a lot of technical skill to it, and that's essential. But what they're doing is innovating and being makers and being performers and improvising. And that is making, that's a making space. And I think that there's a very powerful intersection there between making in art, if you're using words or paint or drawing or sound to create. It's that same stance of creativity and curiosity that is, that's essential to the practice and really under-addressed in the curriculum. And the students who have lived a lot of life and have a lot of different interests and hobbies and things who bring that in, they tend to do better in the clinic with patients because that stance of the artist is familiar rather than new. Did that answer your question? There's definitely more to say because there's a whole world of art, Yeah. But I hope that can sort of just in a general way answer your question.
Lou, we can't hear you. No. No. Let's try once.
Now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
So many thanks, Alexa. I saw many points in common with your talk and from Felipe. I think that for me, we can start with making connections, with allowing opportunities for making connections with the students, with the health workers, and so we can start improving, I think, our teaching activities if we start to allow more opportunities to know each other and to making strong connections with what we learned before and what we want to learn. So I think it was great opportunity. We have to move to the other session. Betania, from our, we are going to stay in the same
we're going to stay in the same link, and we're going to bring another participants to keep with the we're gonna keep the transmission on, and we all can you all can keep online and watch what's gonna happen. And Alexa is gonna start another talk with a little bit more interaction with the people gonna be here with us in this room, and trying to do something like I call it before like drops of BTS, but I really don't know what she prepared for us. It's a surprise for me also.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everybody. And I'm ready to go. I have a number of images, and just tell me how much time we have and we can have some fun when you're ready. But thank you.
Okay. Felipe, thank you again. If you want to stay, it will be a pleasure, but many thanks.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I would love to stay. I have to teach our PPCR course, but then I love to learn about Alexa's work. So I'll definitely read more. Thank you very much, Alexa.
Likewise, Felipe, for sure. Let's be in touch. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye, Luciana. Bye, Marielena.
Bye, Felipe. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Felipe. Bye. We're gonna just have to wait a few moments to let them. Oh, they are coming now. Hi, Alexa. Let me talk about. No, I don't. I will introduce them to you, but I won't. Bias your view. So I'll keep my mouth closed. They are invited to participate of this. I don't know if you all of you were watching the presentation before. Some of them are my students, some of them are professionals, and we are here to learn with you. So it's all with you.
Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you
Some of them are arriving now.
Okay, we'll let them come in. Now, do you all know each other, or are you new to each other as well as new to me?
I think that some of
them know each other, but I don't know if you want to present. If they present themselves.
You know, why don't we pretend like we're all new to each other, since we're kind of, you know, flying by the seat of our pants here. So I first just wanted to say thank you for taking the risk to participate in this session today. You do not need to know anything at all about art to participate. If you do, that's also wonderful. So please don't feel like you need to pretend you're anything or anybody other than who you are. And what we're going to do is look at one work of art together. And it might seem like it has nothing to do with your learning, and that's fine. And I promise we will make a link afterwards. And so just all we're really going to do is look together at a work of art and talk about what we see, and that's it. So if you might be new to one another, why doesn't everybody just put in the chat, introduce yourself, put your name. I'm not going to be reading it, but just so you all know, say your name, you know, if you're a student or what you're doing at the university, and maybe one thing that makes you smile today. Just put that in the chat so we can have a moment to say hello to each other as we're sort of coming in cold. And as you're doing that, I'm going to pull up my slides and we can get started. So, and what I'm going to do, usually when I run a class, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, didn't want to do that from the start. Usually when I'm running a class, I give a bigger introduction about art and diagnosis, and I'm going to give here a very short one, okay? And then we're just going to really jump in to the work of art. But so one of the things I do in my professional life is I teach a course on the challenge of uncertainty in medicine. Now, in the United States, anyway, very commonly in cultures of medicine, uncertainty, even though it's actually the majority of clinical practice and an essential part of the art of medicine is knowing how to be in uncertainty and respecting patients' uncertainty. Uncertainty is often conceived of as a drain on resources or a drain on knowledge. Sometimes even a place of conflict, a place to take up arms or to defend against the elephant in the room, which is the experience of not knowing, which can be a scary and humbling one that is made even worse by the defensive practice that, at least in the United States, grips medicine and these cultures, academic cultures organized by hierarchy of knowledge. That don't necessarily account for the knowledge that comes from lived experience and human interaction. And doctors in particular can stand in a very precarious spot when it comes to uncertainty. And it's really important to know how to be with yourself and with others, stay present and calm and able to co-create knowledge in the face of uncertainty. In art, art is all about uncertainty, but it sort of takes the risk and the pain out of the equation. Because in art, we're supposed to not know what on earth this is, why the artist might have made it. In art, uncertainty is a positive experience where we can learn. And so what we're going to do right now is just look at a work of art to have that experience. So excuse me while I skip over these slides. Some of you might have just seen them in the previous presentation. But what I'm going to do is, why don't we do this one? Let's see, let's do a show of hands. Let's do a choice between this one and this one. So using the hand raising function, put up your hand for if you would like to do choice number 1 here. Do we have any? Let's see. Oh my goodness, I don't think we have any. All right, choice number 2. You can raise your hand. Let's see. Are you guys able to raise your hand in the chat function? No? No, okay. Oh, here we go, one person.
We have.
I think I can't see it. Okay.
We have 5 or 6 hands for this.
For this one?
For this one.
Okay, let's do this one then. Okay. So let's start by just taking a nice quiet moment to enjoy this work of art and take it in. And I ask that we strive for balance in this conversation. So if you're very comfortable talking, I want to hear from you, and I also want you to listen. And if you're very comfortable listening and not sharing, I want to ask you to push and contribute, because I'd love to hear from everybody. And actually the group needs to hear from everybody in order to get the full potential of this experience. So try to really see for yourself, and then strive to see as others see. So what's happening in this picture, in this work of art? Yes, I see a hand from Elise, and I apologize if I pronounce your names wrong.
It's Elise. May I talk?
Yes, please.
Are you ready? I see a person trying to connect with itself. I see a heart that seems a bit more involved with affection, and another one involved with drama and disease and the concrete being of her. I don't know if I made myself clear, but
okay, so it sounds like you see one figure who is trying to connect with herself, and 2 iterations of the same heart, one of which is more contained and which is more diseased and dramatic. What do you see that makes you say that?
the lines that connect the 2 hearts. She also has something on her hand, the Frida on the right, that seems to me like a door lock. I can't see properly, but it looks like that. And that means to me a little bit of trying to make a connection.
Okay, wonderful. And you all in Zoom, if you can use the zoom in function. If you would like to make the image larger, you're able to do that. And you're honing in on a very small detail here and sort of puzzling about what that could be and speculating That might be like a lock to a door, and perhaps that is symbolic of this idea of unlocking or connection between the two. So thinking that this is really one woman in an inward gate, not two people, but one person reflecting on herself. And I heard you mention Frida. So I think you mean the artist Frida Kahlo. And what do you see that makes you say this could be made by Frida Kahlo, the artist? And if you don't know who Frida Kahlo is, that's fine.
That's okay. I know who she is. I don't know if she made the painting, but it looks like her.
Okay, wonderful. So Frida Kahlo is an artist who often painted herself.
Yeah.
Many self-portraits, and this looks like what you've seen in the past as her self-portrait. Looks like her.
Yeah. So I don't know if she made the portrait, but it is her.
Okay, so not sure if Frida wondering if Frida was the artist or not, but fairly certain that this is Frida pictured here.
Exactly.
Wonderful. What more can we find, Natalia?
Hi, can you listen?
Yes.
Well, I think the Frida on the left looks like an older Frida because of the colors, and she's kind of wounded. And the Frida on the right is just a lot brighter, so she looks younger, like she's talking to herself. And I agree with Elise. She said that it looks like she's connecting with herself. That's what I see.
Wonderful. So looking very closely at color, and I think you're looking at the color in the clothing or color elsewhere?
The color in the clothing.
The color in the clothing. To speculate, perhaps, is it this Frida you think might be older? One is older than the other, and that has to do with the brightness of the clothing. So I think you said that this Frida might be the older Frida. Is that correct?
No, the one on the left.
Okay, the one on the left.
Yeah, because the one on the right is a lot brighter, and that makes her look younger.
Okay, wonderful. So, and what do you see that makes you say there's a brightness to this figure?
I think the yellow contrasts with the blue, so it makes her pop more.
Wonderful.
While the white one, she kind of fades in the clouds in the background.
Okay, wonderful. So looking at the colors in relationship to one another and also the background, and that the white of this outfit almost begins to sort of fade her into the background, whereas the yellow and the blue here really pushes her out into the space, and also the way the yellow and blue interact with one another, it's very enlivening to the palette. And there's a brightness there, sort of a youth and a vitality, and agreeing that there's a connection to herself. Wonderful. What more can we find? Let's hear from Laura and then Artur.
I think that looking at both hearts, it kind of looks like she split one heart in two, and it's kind of the two halves. So on the left, we can see the inside, but on the right, it's kind of the other half that is faced to us. So I think it's she has a scissor in her hand, the Frida on the left. So I don't know if she had to, like, for some reason, split them in half, and she's trying to reconnect now. It's kind of contradictory that she has a scissor that kind of remind of like splitting something, and she's holding hands with the other Frida, so it's kind of reconnecting.
Okay, wonderful. So looking very closely at the two hearts and thinking that, in fact, these are possibly not two hearts, but the one heart that's been severed into two, and that we see sort of a cross section of this heart of the front and the other side here, and wondering if perhaps this mechanism in her hand is a scissors, and perhaps that suggests the splitting of the two hearts. And also looking at the softness with which they're holding hands, and agreeing with the idea that she's connecting with herself. Wonderful. What more can we find? Arthur?
Oh, hey there. Well, I agree with Laura. I think the hearts are the same heart. So I think it was split in half. So yeah, and I don't know if it's herself or it's another her that she's seeing. I don't think they are the same person. I think they have different personalities. And one of them, I don't know who said that previously, I'm sorry, but the white dress is quite, it's not bright, it's not something very happy, I think. So, and she's connecting to a happier part of her, but I don't know if it's it's herself. So I keep thinking about this. It's quite complicated. I think it's a really complicated piece of painting. And well, besides that, another thing that calls my attention is the stormy background. And my mother and I, we love Frida Kahlo, so we have already studied a bit of her. And I think this painting was finished when she was divorcing Diego Rivera. So I think the stormy weather reflects like the challenging times that she's facing. And I think this reconnection with the other part of her, and so it's quite complicated to like reconnect to yourself. So the challenging times are reflected on the stormy weather. And yeah, I think that's it. So the two hearts, or the one heart split into two, and the background are the things that call my attention the most.
Okay, wonderful. So bringing in some knowledge. It sounds like you have a passion for Frida, as do I, about the artist, and connecting knowing about the many stages of her life, and connecting the stormy weather in the background to a time in her life of divorce. And what do you see that makes you say that?
You mean the stormy weather and the things to reconnect herself?
Actually, specifically the divorce to Diego Rivera.
Oh, so the thing that calls my attention to this is not on the painting, is like the date when it was last finished. It was finished.
Okay,
so
wonderful.
Something apart from the painting.
Okay, excellent. And then also just commenting on the dress, returning to comparing the dresses, and noticing that although this dress is intricate and interesting in many ways, it does not seem happy. And what do you see that makes you say that?
Well, I think the fact that it's white, and maybe I'm just thinking out loud here, maybe the fact that white dresses are connected to marriage, and I think this one is a bit sadder, because this one might remind her of her marriage that has gone wrong. And so yeah, and I don't see color because it's only white, and the other one is bright, it's yellow, it's blue, and it has other colors, so they contrast between themselves. And I think blue and yellow also are complementary colors, and so it's like it draws your attention to it. And it's the new chapter of her life that's commencing right now, just after the divorce. So yeah.
Thank you. And then my last question was, you mentioned that they're really different, that you actually, I think you even said they're maybe not even the same person. They're very different. What do you see that makes you say that?
Well, let me point out, first of all, the skin color. I think they have their differences. One of them is more pale. The one with the white dress is paler, and the other one is not that pale. I think that reflects some vitality in the right one. And well, I also point out the dresses once again, and the fact that we can see that the right one has a heart that seems complete. So the part that we see of the split heart, the splitting heart, is the one that seems like, well, this is a heart, a complete heart itself. The other one is clearly not a complete heart. So these elements tend me to put like, well, this is another her. It's not the one on the left is not the same as the one on the right.
Okay. And is that different from the previous idea of one woman connecting with herself? Is that, are you building on that idea, or are you saying it's actually two women?
Well, I think it's kind of complicated once again, because I think they are Frida Kahlo, but they are not the same Frida Kahlo. It's like maybe the other personality that she has, and that she has been like kept apart from the marriage, the happier Frida for the per se. So I'm still like in doubt if it's the same person or if there are two different persons. Yeah.
Yes and no. Love it. Thank you so much. What more can we find? Let's hear from Christiane, and then Deborah, and then we probably have to wrap up in the interest of time, is my guess. Although I want to hear from you.
Don't worry with the time. We still have time.
Don't worry. Okay, we'll keep going. But you tell me, Betania, you tell me when we have about 5 minutes left.
Okay, I will.
Okay, thank you.
I think I'm not the next one. I think they have their hands raised.
Okay, you call on who you think is next.
Okay.
Shall we do
Deborah or Samuel? I think they have their hands before me.
Okay. Should I call on Deborah and then Samuel?
Hi, are you listening to me?
Yes, I can hear you.
My voice is a little weak, but I will try to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
I also love this painting. I'm a fan of Frida Kahlo, and I agree with Arthur when he's saying about her marriage with Diego, and the white dress is torn apart. It's ripped out, and the heart is exposed. So I remember a lot about her story, because she tried to make it work. Her marriage was a big success for her, and she was really rooting for it to work out. So that was a part of her. I think that she kind of tried to keep it to herself and not show to the other part of her about how ruined her marriage was. So when the dress is torn apart and the heart is exposed, she's kind of dealing with that, because that means she's going to have to act on it and to actually divorce the person that she loves most. And I think there's like a conversation, because I also think about maturity here. Like the left, she's a mature woman, and in the right, she's kind of full of yaws. And I think she holds in her hand, it's a picture of her family when she was a little girl. Yeah. And that kind of reminds me of the young Frida, the happy one, the before the accident that she went through. Frida, she had an accident in her life that changed her life and made her go through a lot of pain, right? So it's like a Frida before that, all of the pain of the marriage and the accident. And there's something else that I've been thinking about while everybody was talking, and it was awesome to think with all of those ideas. But the heart, it's like the external part in the right side. So you can see the external part of the heart. And in the left side, we can see the intimate and the inside of Frida Kahlo, like what was happening inside of her. But also, it made me think about the much that she was struggling inside, and tried to not put it outside. She was trying to hold it within her. So it's like, okay, this is the Frida, the right Frida that you can see, the youth Frida, the one that is okay, that is has like whole future ahead. And in the left, it's like really painful things that she's been through, and the Frida that is suffering, and the Frida that is going through a lot in her life, the suffering Frida, which is within herself, like inside the heart. So I don't know. After everybody was talking, I was like, oh my God, there's so many things to see in this picture. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Deborah. Though there was so much there, and I can hear in your voice how deeply you were looking at this and thinking about this, and bringing in what sounds like a lifetime of interest in Frida and some of these topics. And I'm not going to be able to encapsulate everything you said, but I hear you really speaking to, bringing in, knowing that her marriage to Diego Rivera was a hugely important part of her life, and like building on the ideas suggested earlier by Arturo, like the two different sides of her, and who she was in her marriage and who she is as Frida outside of her marriage, and herself, and sort of building on that idea, but really speaking to the effort that she put into that marriage, seeing it in the way in which, like, the wedding dress is like, her heart like blew off that dress, and just how hard she tried, and the pain of her accident, the pain that she lived through in her health, and also the pain of her courage of divorcing the person she loved the most, so as to be able to return to who she truly is and move on in her life. And speculating that this puzzling little object that we were thinking earlier could possibly be like a lock, wondering if perhaps it's a picture of, and that recognizes herself as a child and her family and that sort of core identity before her accident, and sort of a return to that and the nourishment of that, and really sort of demystifying this tension between like inner life and what the world sees, and suggesting too, building on this idea of the split heart that we see here, the interior of this heart, and here it's the external. So perhaps this is the interior Frida that has suffered so deeply, and that this is what like the outside world sees, and bringing that layer onto our understanding of the picture. Did I get that right? And what do you see? What do you see that makes you say this might be a picture of herself as a child and her family?
No, I'm kind of seeing.
It's really hard to see. I'm not totally sure what that thing is. By the way,
I don't know. In real life. It just looks like a suit, and her father was always wearing a suit, as I recall. But it's just a speculation too. I'm not sure, but it looks like her father in the right side of the amulet.
Wonderful.
Yeah, right there.
Thank you so much. What more can we find? Samuel.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Hello. So like Arthur, I agree with him. One thing that really caught my attention were the clothes, especially the white dress. It really seems to like a wedding dress to me. It seems that it was dressed for a special moment. And one thing that also caught my attention was the landscape. It looks like foggy, so it makes me feel that she was passing for a hard time at that moment she was painting. And the fact that she's connected to herself, because for me, I think that all of the women are herself, are Frida Kahlo, but like in different times, and could have different thoughts about herself and about the life and about everything. But physically, they are the same person for me. But also, she cut one of the lines that we really don't know that line was connected to what, but she's splitting the blood in the white dress. So I think that the blood in the dress has also a connection with her wedding with probably Diego Rivera, and the end that she's put into that relationship.
Okay, wonderful. So in a couple of your comments, building on a number of the other ideas, including like the storminess of the background and what that might suggest about like this very pregnant or difficult moment in her life, really kind of, I hear you sort of focusing on this dress and what it signifies, maybe both for marriage and for divorce, and I even heard you say just a special moment in her life, maybe even separate from marriage. But to start, what do you see that makes you say that this dress signifies in some way a special moment in her life?
Well, for me, it's the dress have a lot of details that makes me feel that this dress was designed for a special moment. It was not like a dress she used it every day. It was for a specific time that she had in her life.
Okay, wonderful. So really just noticing on the intricacy of the design, it seems like it's very specific. And then connecting the blood coming from this vein here onto the dress, wondering if that signifies like the pain and the suffering of that marriage. And previously we had speculated that this tool might be a scissors, but I think I hear you saying it might be stopping the blood. Is that correct? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No. I said that for me, it looked like the scissor was cutting the vein.
Oh, it was cutting.
Because of that, they're splitting blood in the dress. It was splitting blood in the dress.
So the decision to cut results in the blood on the dress. Wonderful. So really also bringing in some of a sense of like a narrative moment of this exact moment in the picture. It's more than just a portrait, but we have this moment of making the decision to cut and the dress being stained. Wonderful. What more can we find? Natalie, I think I see your hand up again.
I just wanted to contribute to this line of thought that the dress symbolizes marriage. I think the bottom of the dress, it might be like the fairy tale kind of beginning in the marriage, while the blood and all of the scars above shows that it has difficulties.
Okay, wonderful. So looking at the patterns on the dress, the markings on the dress, and the sort of progression from this pattern down here up into the blood itself, and wondering if the pattern might sort of tell me if I want to make sure I heard you right. So don't let me get this wrong. I think I heard you saying that it's almost like a progression of time of like our idea of marriage and the orderliness of it, and then the difficulties that there's this pattern sort of becomes the blood. Did I get that right?
The bottom of the dress kind of symbolizes that perfect beginning, and then how that's kind of turns into usual, and then the end of this marriage.
Okay, so pointing out a relationship between the pattern on the dress and the blood, and how they might symbol, our conception of marriage into like the reality and the painful reality in the end. Thank you. What more can we find?
I'd like to say something. I know a little bit of Frida's life, but when I was looking at the picture, I was thinking only about the picture. So for me, it was about the wedding. This is for me a wedding dress. And maybe during the wedding, she had to split the heart. And for me, it's not a scissor, like you said. It's like it's trying to stop the bleeding. I don't know how to name it in English, but in Portuguese, I know mosquito.
It's a clamp.
Clamp, yeah. A clamp. She was trying to stop the bleeding, but she could not. something is only yeah. I think I don't know if which one is younger from the other. I cannot see which one is younger.
Okay, wonderful. So I hear you sort of building on some of the previous ideas and also questioning them, sort of trying on the idea one may be younger or older than the other, but actually not so sure. But connecting agreeing with that it would be a wedding dress and thinking that perhaps this signifies that it was the wedding itself that split the heart. What do you see that makes you say that?
It's because for me, they both are at the same time, and she's two persons at the same time. And during, I don't know if she acts differently while a wife and when she's not, something like that. Because for me, it's during the same time.
Okay. And what do you see that makes you say that it's not different women at different times? It's actually the same time, and that seems important. What do you see that makes you say that?
I'm not sure, because for me, they are. I cannot tell their age. That's why.
Okay. Wonderful. And then lastly, sort of speculating that this might be a clamp stopping the blood rather than a scissors making the decision to cut. What do you see that makes you say that?
The shape of the instrument, and I think she's trying to stop the bleeding. I think she during the wedding she was trying to make things better or something like that, and she was trying to stop the bleeding.
Wonderful, thank you. What more can we find? Let's see, shall we hear from Ilana?
Hello. I'm thinking, looking at this picture, that this line, this blood vessel that leaves the entire heart and passes behind her neck and goes on front of her. It looks like it's something that is suffocating her. I was wondering why the one it lives in the front of her right body, and I disagree. When I first look at this picture now, I think it was a night dress, not a wedding. Because it maybe I thought this because she is with blood and she's sick, looks like sick, and she's also pale, more pale than the picture in the right side. And this picture of this blood vessel around or almost around her entire neck make me think that she's trying to get rid of this sick person, or trying to not to suffocate this pain and this sick person. That's it.
Okay, wonderful. So big themes of suffocation and saving oneself, restoring oneself. Noticing, for looking very closely at these veins and the lines and noticing that it seems to really be like wrapped around her neck. And speculating that perhaps, we noticed the differences in their tone, their skin tone. And I think, sort of agreeing it might not be about age, but actually blood loss or suffocation. And that perhaps this cutting is an attempt to stop the suffocation. Did I hear that right?
Yes.
Wonderful. And also the dress. We spoke a lot about a sort of special event in life and perhaps a correlation with the wedding dress and marriage. And I hear you bringing in a different perspective that perhaps it's actually a night dress, a nightgown. What do you see that makes you say that?
Because it's white, it's like the dress we use when we are in bed, and even though it's there is a lot of details, for me it looks like it could be a night dress also.
Okay, wonderful.
Just the color.
Wonderful, thank you. Tiago, I think we have not yet heard from you. What more can we find?
Hi, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
Alexa. Well, I was thinking about this little thing she holds in her left hand. And maybe we can't see in the picture, but maybe the vessels, the red lines in her left arm are connected to it. And these are the memories, the feelings that she had in the past that feeds her heart. And now it feeds the Frida in the left, that is the Frida in the present. So the Frida in the present needs to connect to the Frida in the right, that is the Frida in the past. But what feeds everything is something that is inside this little thing in her left hand, and is also interesting to notice that the vessel, the red line in her right arm, this is not bleeding. The flow of the blood, maybe it's not ascendant, maybe it's not descending, but it's ascending. So the line that is cut is the line of this little thing in the left, but that maybe she holds it in her right hand too. You see? So imagine we could realize that she holded something similar in his right hand that holds her memories, his feelings, and we can see the little things in her right hand. But maybe this is bleeding because this line was cut, because the vessel in the right, it's not descending, it's going up, because this is if you see the vessel that comes from the right Frida, is the vessel that goes to the heart. It goes to the heart. So the vessel in the right, it goes to the heart. It cannot go to the hand. The flow is up and not down. So maybe she had something, this little thing in his right hand that feeded her heart in the past, but now it's cut. So she needs to feed her actual heart with the little thing in the left hand from the past. So this is something I thought about.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So I hear you looking so closely at the intricacies of the veins and the vessels and where they're connected, and thinking about the flow of the blood, and thinking that perhaps noticing that this is very closely, this thing in her hand is very closely connected with these vessels, and wondering if in fact this is the source of nourishment, the source of new energy and life, that is perhaps, you made a case for the fact that maybe the blood is ascending from here. It's not bleeding out on this side, but this is in fact source. And what's happening here is, like, again, sort of building on this idea of the preservation of the blood, and that whatever it is in here is feeding this heart and feeding this heart, and wondering if it's, you know, her core memories, her core identity, whatever is in that little trinket there.
Because in a
very
symbolic
important
way, our heart is fed by our memories. So this is very symbolic, you know.
Feeding of the heart.
So what feeds her heart is something that is inside it. This little thing in the left hand. So maybe this is a very strong symbol that we have.
Yes.
That what feeds our heart, it's our feelings,
Wonderful. So perhaps even though this object is very tiny compared to the rest of the picture, that it's a location of of the source of what is life-giving to her and what will fill and feed her heart. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Should we keep going? We've been going on and on. I love it. But you can see how you can just keep going.
We have half an hour for the next event from the Semana Científica, but sign us if you how long would you need to do a closing and a conclusion?
We can start to wrap up. I want to thank you all so much for just jumping in and for your passion I can hear so much passion for art and creativity and life, and it's just wonderful. It makes me so happy to know you're all out there doing the work you are. I know there are still hands up to continue to talk about this. And I think what we should do is everybody, if you have thoughts about this picture, put them in the chat right now so we can capture them. But we'll start to wrap up the presentation now. So let's just take a quiet moment first to do that. And I'll let you all just appreciate and enjoy each other's reads. I will say, I have looked at this work of art so many times with so many different groups, and I have never heard the concept of the split heart, one heart split into, come up. And that is really unique to your group and something I will never be able to unsee. So thank you.
I'm so happy of when they arrive. I'm so happy of having you here, so Alexa. I've been following your work for so many times, and thank you, Elena, again for introducing the Alexis Miller work to me, because I believe that she's so inspiring and that makes us work and feel and think in so many different ways. And I'm really happy of sharing you and your knowledge and your points of view with this community that I spend all my days with.
Thank you so much, Betania. I appreciate that. And I remember when you first came to one of my salons, you said, medicine is my joy. Well, my joy is medicine, and medicine is uncertainty.
Yes.
Appreciate that spirit that you bring to teaching and learning and care.
It was in vacation.
Yeah. Yes.
I was in vacation. Yes.
Yeah.
I just love hear everyone talk about this masterpiece, because there is so many ways to see and feel and think, and each time we look really learn a different way to see this. Thiago just brought some great point of view. I thought it was fantastic. Thank you very much. And I will brief some things about the professionals that are here. Thiago is also a radiologist.
Oh,
we have
wonderful.
Yes, I thought about Vicky when
Yes.
we were talking. We have 5 or 6 medical students and medical professor, and Elisa, that is in the same room with me, it's a psychologist here.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
I believe that Kitty have to to turn off the video because she's working at another university. But I don't know. I'm in love for everything that you talk, and so happy to have you here with us.
Can I take like 5 minutes just to kind of close the session? Is that okay?
Of course.
Okay,
no, I was just talking to let them write the
good.
the
Okay.
point of view.
Wonderful. So let's use the hand raise function in Zoom. So raise your hand if you learned something, if you saw something new based on something somebody else said. Wonderful. And actually, why doesn't everybody just put in the chat an example of something new that you saw as a result of somebody else's perspective? And you can take your hand raised down because I'm going to have another question for you in a minute. Yeah, the splitted heart was new for me as well. There's always something new. It is never not new. I looked at some of the same works of art for many years, and it's never the same conversation. Wonderful. Okay, so take your hands down. And next question, raise your hand if you learned something about your own way of seeing. Wonderful. And if you have specific examples about the awareness you gained on your own way of seeing, please put that in the chat as well. And as you're doing that, I just want to say, I cannot emphasize, somebody who's studied diagnosis over the years, I cannot emphasize how important self-awareness is in being a great clinician, in being a great leader, in being a great teammate. We all see the world differently. We all have different biases that are not bad. They're unique to our humanity and our background. And we all have sort of ways of seeing that inform our perspective. And the more we can be aware of that, the more it helps us with the power of our own way of seeing, and also to hold that power with a lightness and to check it with other ways of seeing, to actually have rationality and objectivity, which is really the goal. Okay, next question. Raise your hand if you learned something about health or women's health specifically. I don't know how you are taught to learn about health, but a model that I use a lot rely on a lot in my teaching is the biopsychosocial model of health, that our health is interconnected with environment, with relationships, and with biology. That those three things, it's a dance between those two, and our health is a fluid state that results from those factors. Our health is, I mean, in my opinion, our health is our most precious resource. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And so the uncertainty of health is actually sacred. We don't necessarily think of our daily work as sacred, but it's sacred work to care for health. So if you could throw into the chat some examples of what you learned about health or women's health today, please do so, as that's a really important piece. And I want to thank you all again for operating in English, because that cannot be easy. And that allowed us to do this work today. So thank you so much. I wish I could come to you knowing how to speak Portuguese, and I appreciate very much the extra work that you put in to make this conversation possible.
Each time I speak with you, I miss so much my English classes.
I'm glad you like it. I feel so badly.
There's so many beautiful things that you were writing in chat.
I know this chat is a Frida Kahlo in and of itself. It's really beautiful. What a sensitive group.
Really, really, really good. I have to comment the Deborah's, not the last thing that she wrote, but I felt it, you just fed my heart when you wrote something like, I feel calm when someone said something that I had never thought about.
Yes.
So precious, Deborah.
It is so important.
Congratulations.
And, I'm so glad you mentioned that comment, because it calls to mind the pleasure of learning, the pleasure of an enlightened kind of learning, which is the pleasure of expanding your mind, which is so different from the pleasure of being right, the pleasure of being, getting a higher grade than somebody else. That's a pleasure, and there's no shame in that pleasure, but it's a different pleasure from actually learning something new and that discovery. I believe that Bell Hooks has an essay on that very pleasure. And so, if you think about the rewards of excellent patient care, right? People's lives being better, people's, enjoying the pleasures of their life and their health and being able to do the things they want to do. And also the pleasure of being a clinician and learning about medicine and people as you go. Those are the pleasures that we really need to connect to for better care in the world. And if our training keeps us connected to the pleasure of being right and performing higher than other people, we miss that. And so I appreciate that. I want to really give elevation to that comment, because that is that pleasure.
The pleasure of notice that something that you had never saw before, but it's here always. Yeah, but I just noticed now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make a very, very small comment. As a psychologist, we work a lot with the communication and what it means to people when they receive a communication. So your work makes a lot of sense when we are at the ICU talking to a family about a difficult news. So it sounds very different when someone knows how to communicate that. No matter how difficult the information may be, but if you know how to communicate, you will do it right, certainly. So what we did today, it made me feel that it made absolute sense and help people to feel secure and vulnerable to be able to communicate, even if it's a very difficult situation. So I thank you for that. And hopefully we can make more people be sensitive enough to be able to be closer to people's feelings and not just their images or their exams or their chart.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that so much. And it really is, it's amazing what people bring when they just have space and quiet to look and think and share, and the permission to be wondering and exploring rather than drive to a performance of a right answer. And I love the connection to psychology is so important especially like, and I want to, we won't really have time for this today, but earlier in the presentation, I pointed out the VTS methodology and how its mechanics work. And a very key part of how it works is that the facilitator stays neutral, doesn't say, oh, you said a split heart, you're a genius, I've never heard that before. Like, for me, it was there were so many things that were said that are very exciting, but I stayed calm and neutral. So we have neutrality here. And gave everybody the same dose of enthusiasm. And that's something that a facilitator trains to do. That's one thing that will keep the space calm and keep people wanting to participate, because they're not getting the sense that the teacher's trying to guide one way or another. And that can be very hard, and I imagine in psychology, like talking to a family about a really difficult topic, that is very hard to stay neutral and calm. It's hard, there were moments in this conversation that were hard for me, that were exciting, that were passionate, that spoke to my heart, that were painful. I recently got a divorce and had a mastectomy. Like, I was really relating to that painting, like, a lot, but I kept it separate from myself and stayed in your experience. And that's something that takes a lot of practice to be able to do when you're a human being. And in medicine, they almost train you to not be a human being. They train you to shut off from your ability. Like, you need to go to the bathroom? No, we're going to reward you for going 8 hours and never going to the bathroom. You're hungry? No, we're going to reward you for not eating your lunch. Like, we're going to reward you for not needing sleep. Doctors are often shut off from their body and their humanity. And it's this challenge of staying connected and also being whole in yourself while staying neutral and present with others, that excellent psychiatrists, excellent teachers, excellent clinicians are able to do. Also, conditional language, keeping it open to what could be or what might be. You notice this tool, it might be a scissors. It might be a clamp. I didn't say you're right, you're wrong. Everything gets validated and also has a space to change their mind, and develop and evolve in our thinking and learning. These are other very subtle moves that probably, I'm sure roll into your teaching as well. That, talking with families and patients about their health, validating what we know and what we see while leaving space for things to change and heal and grow, is another really critical skill. So, we could go down the line and sort of make different connections, but I just wanted to point out those two apropos that comment, which I appreciate so much. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Alexa. Thank you very much.
I
don't know if someone have a question, a word, anything.
Yeah, any questions or any just reflections?
A reflection.
What strikes you, what you noticed about this, how you see it connecting, things you found challenging, that's okay too. We don't have to be very positivist. Sometimes people find this very dissatisfying, and that's okay. That's, that's really okay. It can be challenging to stay in an open-ended space when you want an answer. And so I welcome any comments or reflections or questions.
I have a question. How do you see this method, the VTS, being used in universities? Do you think it might be one day like part of our curriculum?
Yeah, so I see it being, I see it being very powerful in all kinds of ways, especially, universities broadly. I think that there are certain professions actually, Dr. Felipe talked about human interaction as the driver of education. And I think that VTS sets up a learning environment where people are interacting in a way that fundamentally changes the power dynamics for how we interact and makes us all equal members of a circle. And I think there's relevance across all domains of life. I mean, VTS is used in business settings, it's used, teachers train in it. But I think especially for professions like journalism, education, medicine, places where people really need to work together to understand the story and innovate a new way forward, is particularly relevant. So I would love to see it as part of longitudinal curriculum that span professions, because more and more medicine is being understood as a team sport. And many professions have barriers to productive communication for different kinds of reasons. And I think it's just a wonderful way that people can learn to know each other and appreciate what the others bring, and also master skills of, combining our knowledge as a collective rapidly. One of the things I also love about it is that it, in some ways, subscribes to principles of science, of basic inquiry, of using observations to frame our questions and then pursue those questions. At the same time, it's very humanistic, right? Because art comes from the deepest part of our most humanity. So medicine, medicine is deeply scientific and deeply humanistic and social. So I think that some of those things are very hard to learn, especially for students who have not had a lot of experience outside of the classroom, that it can play a role. It can't do everything, but it can play a role in expediting some of that learning that can be a hard transition.
I'd like to comment something about Laura, because I was her teacher in clinical skills. And at that time, she told us that she's an artist. I don't know if another student here has some talent, but Laura is a great artist in our university. And I remember telling her that I think you should continue doing both. I don't know if she remembered this, but I think it's going to be good for you.
Yes, I remember. It was really good hearing that someone you look up to that tells you, okay, you can do art and you can be like a doctor.
Mm-hmm. That's
doctor.
I think some of the best clinicians out there are also artists in their life, and so many students come to medical school with a big creative life in dance or in poetry or sports, and they feel they have to put that on hold and put it aside, like Frida in her marriage, like squish it out. So to pursue medicine and succeed in the academic challenges of that. And I think it's very challenging. It's very, very challenging to do both. And it's also will only be rewarding, and each will only feed the other.
I want to share a story with you, because I use a part of VTS in a class that I made. I believe it was 2 months ago. And when I finished the class, a student came to me and said, "Thank you very much for reminds me that I can be a doctor and like art." Because I used to, but I had to kill that passion that I had to study and everything else and being a doctor. And now I can see that I can love and do both things, and I can use the knowledge and applying and share these things with other people. It was pleasant.
That's wonderful. I need to actually go because it's almost 1 o'clock here. This was such a great pleasure to interact with all of you today. And we kept today a little bit open-ended, but I just want to say we could very easily make connections back to principles of diagnosis or principles of, interprofessional communication or communication with patients and families or teamwork. Or we could, as a next step, invite each of you to practice facilitating a conversation and see what it feels like to hold the group and reflect on your own leadership. So I just want you to know that different, links are there. You've certainly touched on a lot of them. I would love to have the opportunity to go deeper in any and all of them with all of you. I hope that you enjoyed the art and one another. And I think to close, if you feel comfortable putting in the chat, let's take a moment to reflect on one thing that you want to take from your experience today. And let's just end by reflecting on that. One thing you want to take away, or one thing you want to do differently, or an intention you would like to set for your practice as a human being, as an artist, as a doctor, as a learner, as a teacher, as a leader, a teammate, a human being, a family member. Let's end with that.
Alex, I read your material with the expression that I just love. We have to have little time off and our eyes on. Yeah. I just love that expression, and I believe it's the resume. It's the for me, it's the most important meaning, the most important message.
Thank you. And thank you for keeping that alive in your teaching, Betania. It's very important today. That's at risk of being lost. And that is, I believe that is the essence of excellent care.
I'm sure and that we're gonna call you much more times to stay with us and share your knowledge and share your experience and your passion for this work. I'm so thankful above everything. And how can I say, above everything last few weeks, and with all passion and 100% here, you keep us in touch with, like, I don't know, I believe that 3 hours ahead. So thank you very much. Thank you so very much.
I put in the chat my website and my email address. So feel free to reach out at any time. Any of you, I'm happy to talk, and I would love to have the opportunity to engage further. And this was such a bright spot on my day to get to sync minds with you all. So thank you for the beautiful discussion and your thoughtful work. And I look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you very much, Alexa. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Vicky, for being here.
And Vicky, thank you very much also.
Thank you.
Thanks.